Yes, I like it.
This is the Builders Business Success Podcast for builders who want to attract more quality clients who aren't price-focused, eliminate cash flow pressure, and get paid for every quote. Here's your host, Mick Hawes.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Builders Business Success Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to give you tips and tools and insights into how you can improve your building business and get rid of all of the negativity and the challenges that tend to come about in a building business because of building industry norms. And that's what we're all about, is smashing those building industry norms, showing you can do things differently in a building business. It doesn't always have to be like it's always been. And that's what we're bringing to you in this show. So let's get on with it. So we've got a really, really exciting show lined up for you. Super pumped to talk to a really good mate of mine, and his name is Josh Mckiterick. He's just such a smart dude. He's a really passionate dude. He loves to help out. He loves to get people's ideas of what they're trying to accomplish out and in a form that can be implemented and applied and really helps people achieve their goals. And he's just a super cool dude, and I'm excited to have him on the show. And of course, we've got What Did I Say? And in this bit of What Did I Say, I share a story of when I was in jail. I'm not going to say anything more about that. You'll have to get to that point in the podcast to learn what I was doing in jail. And in this week's episode, we've got a book review. And in my view, this particular book is the book that if there was a law that came out that said you're only ever allowed to have one book in your life, this is the one. So stick around for that review. Okay, so let's push on. It's time to hear my conversation with my good mate, Josh Mckiterick. But just before we went live, you were saying you're absolutely going flat out, and it's all due to COVID. You normally have a lull at this time of year, but you went crazy because you all your clients are training people, and they all had to shift from their normal in-person events to the virtual type world, and everyone has called on you at once. So you've been rolled hard and hung up wet, and ready to do some binging on Netflix. But I guess the question I have for you that is what are some of the things that you learned through this whole COVID process that have been able to positively affect your business? Because, I mean, many builders are saying, you know, everyone's pulling up stumps and projects are being put on hold and we don't know whether we'll be able to get the money and all that sort of stuff. But most of our black belt members are busier than they've ever been. And so that's in the building industry. So I don't want anyone to think, well, Josh is a trainer, so it's okay for him. He doesn't understand I'm a builder. I think most businesses, if they can pivot and understand what's going on around them, they can learn lessons and benefit from these sorts of situations. So what have been yours?
Yeah, good question. So to put me in context, what I do is I help out smart people like Mick who work with people who have businesses. So a lot of my clients are business coaches. And so what I have, which is really interesting, like Mick has perspective on the cohort that he hangs out with. I have perspective on multiple cohorts who multiple business coaches hang out with. And so we're talking about builders, tradies, contractors, professionals, people who own furniture stores, like so many different types of businesses. But something that I've really learned is what works in one industry will often work in another industry. And so I get to hang out with smart people who have been helping their business cohorts not just survive, but really thrive during this period. And of course, I've been applying a whole bunch of stuff into my business as well, which has been great. So total blessing in disguise. It's been a difficult period for a lot of people, but you know, everyone who has made the smart and intelligent decision to be in a community like yours, Mick, and the smart group of business coaches who we hang out with, more often than not, everyone has succeeded throughout this period, and it's been a really successful period for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And you might be able to shed some understanding on how this sort of thing works. But there were guys who are in our membership that were kind of struggling coming into COVID. And the reason I bring this up is just before we went live, I did one of our daily momentum calls with our members. And one of the guys said, the thing that's made the biggest difference through this period has been these daily conversations. And I'm certainly not putting my hand up for, dropping genius bombs on them every day. I'm not talking about that. It's just that they had a conversation with each other in a little group setting every day about proactive practices, and we share wins and we share lessons every day, and we answer each other's questions every day, 5 days a week. This particular guy was involved every day, like he hardly ever misses a day. He's still on site, like a lot of the guys are on site, and they've got their phones on a tripod with Bluetooth earbuds still banging in. One guy nearly got run over by a bobcat on the call today.
Why weren't people doing this before? Like, why did we wait for COVID to do this?
I don't know.
This is the thing. Like, I think, there's this kind of like, it'll be fine. And prior to COVID, we were cruising along, and then COVID happens, and all of a sudden people went into panic mode for a couple of weeks, right? Complete reptile brain. The world's going to fall apart. But we're all business owners, and we control our own destiny. And we can make decisions that are going to put us in a good spot. So when other people are floundering around, the best action you could take was surround yourself with really smart people as often as possible, and just get good ideas from people. Because the difference between surviving COVID as a business and doing poorly is an insight, getting over your own shit, listening to smart people, and taking positive action. Because, in any time like this, not only does a whole bunch of challenge comes along, but a whole bunch of opportunity comes along. And the people that have really leaned into the opportunity, and the opportunity is not going to be laid out in front of you. You've got to figure it out like a jigsaw puzzle. But if you sit down and took the time to do the damn thing, most people have had some phenomenal business insights. And they're innovating at the speed that they probably should be innovating. Most businesses innovate once or twice a year, and this has forced us to innovate 8 or 9 times within 2 or 3 months. But the speed of innovation is the thing that's going to make your business absolutely go through the roof. So for me personally, I've completely smashed my business model and turned it into something else. I've set up 2 really profitable partnerships with people. That's made a massive difference for my business. And I know the other coaches who I've worked with, such as yourself, in various industries have said, is there someone that you can partner with right now to hop outside of being like a solo provider and start hopping into a solar system of businesses who can support each other? That's been one of the massive things that I've seen. Like, who out there has your client that you can partner with? What's somebody... if somebody asks you for a service that you can't offer right now, who's somebody else in your little ecosystem that you can give it to? And of course, what goes around comes around. So setting up these little partnerships, and whether they're like transactional, here's a client, you give me some money, or whether it's a goodwill thing, you send me clients that you can use and you send them back the other way, or it turns into a small collaboration or some sort of small business partnership to have a new offer that we previously didn't have before. Like, smart business partnerships is one of the things that I've really seen people lean into and made a lot of profit from, and created a whole new arm of their business that didn't exist before that's going to be profitable for them in the future. So a business partnership is one of the things that I've done that I've seen a lot of people do that's made a big difference.
Yep. I can hear people. I hear voices. Builders saying, well, that's all right for you, Josh. I'm a builder.
Yeah.
There's no one I can partner with. But I think that, and I want your thoughts on this. I want you to be able to explain to these people that they need to shift their thinking and get out of that pessimistic lack thinking, and that won't work for me thinking, because that is absolutely sensational advice, even for a builder. And it's kind of like I've suggested to some of our members to do a podcast. Yeah. And it's like many builders, if you suggest, what have I got to talk about? It's fascinating stuff what they talk about. And one of the guys, he's only 26. He's had a business for 3 years. He started his own podcast about a couple of months ago. I was watching one of his episodes last night. Fascinating stuff. But what have you got to say to help people get out of that, well, that's all right for you, but that won't work for me?
Okay, so you just talked about something that I'm going to call amplify authority, and I'm going to come back to that, right, about the podcast. But
let's make a note. I'll make a note so we don't forget it.
Yeah. I want to talk about partnerships. Okay. Anyone who says that I'm a X person and I can't move into a partnership, I call bullshit, and I'll tell you why. It's because, and I know this. Look, my father-in-law, he owned a power tool store for 36 years. Right. And I actually spent about 18 months apprenticing to him because I'm going to inherit like a shed full of power tools. And when I say a shed full, the shed's bigger than my bloody house. And I wanted to learn how to use them. Okay. Now, I know just working with him that builders don't operate in a vacuum. Right. And you've got your client, and your client, when they're building their house, will use providers before you, whilst they're working with you, and after you. And all of those people that operate in the ecosystem of, I had an idea to build a house, through to I've shifted in, the whole thing's done. And we all know that a house is never done. Yeah. Right. All of those people live inside of your ecosystem, and they are people that you can put inside your network and have constructive partnerships with. Now, it doesn't need to be a piece of paper where you're swapping money, but you can swap clients. You can build a network of people that you are fueling each other's businesses, and they are fueling your businesses. So if you hop outside of the vacuum thinking, I operate in isolation, and start thinking about what is the customer journey beyond me and before me, these are people that you can set up meaningful relationships with that's going to set you up for a bloody lifetime. That's how I think about it.
Yeah.
God, I'm on a rant now, Mick. I'm on a soapbox.
Get up there. Stay on it. You did mention amplify authority. I didn't write it down. I said I was going to, but I didn't. Is that what you said?
Okay. Yeah. Talking to a smart bloke. His name's Troy Dean, right? Troy Dean works with digital agencies, right? The bloke who built your website, yeah? And he's like, don't sell a bloody website, guys, because you can get some dude in the Philippines to build your website for $150. Don't sell people websites. Sell people digital strategies. And here's the thing. Troy said, if you sit at home and you're just on your computer all day, nobody knows about you. And when you start talking to a client, well, a potential prospect, you have to tap dance for them. You feel like you're in an interview, yeah? But what you can do instead, and you're doing a podcast, and this is an example of what you're doing right now, is rather than waiting for people to find you, put out amazing, valuable content that people are already interested about. Everyone who wants to build a house is asking questions right now, yeah? In their own head, maybe out loud. And there's 100 questions that they have. Why don't you build a podcast, start shooting videos,
write a book,
write some words, write a book that literally just answers all of those questions for somebody. Answer the questions they don't even know to ask yet. Put it out there. And when it comes around to the person going, I'm ready to buy a builder, well, guess who they're going to come to? They're going to come to you because you have offered them value and you're the trusted expert. You're the person that they listen to. And so people always talk about marketing and they're all about take. I need to buy my stuff. But actually, why don't you just give? And when they're perfectly positioned to want to buy, they'll just be like, oh, you're the obvious choice.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it. So I see a lot of people using the time and space that they have, if they got time and space, to go, you know what, I'm going to become that person in my marketplace. Why wouldn't you come to me? And I'm going to do it by offering massive value. Yeah. I'm going to enter the conversation that people are already talking about, place myself in front of them. So when they're ready to buy, I'm the dude they come to.
Yeah. Every so often I say something that's perhaps a bit worthwhile. If the cameras are rolling, we record it and we put it in this next segment. What did I say? In this particular segment, as I said, you're going to find out why I was in jail and did they let me out. Let's have a listen. Yeah, and like the conversation that I always think of when this happened was years and years and years ago, I ended up at Risdon Prison, which is the jail in Hobart, teaching the inmates there for a couple of years. And there was one guy in there, part Aboriginal guy, his name was Mackenzie, and he'd been in boys' homes and whatever since he was like 10, and then he was a lifer in jail for murder. And he came to my classes at the start, and I found out later on, like he was one of sort of the enforcers. Chopper Reed was in there as well, but he was sort of one of the enforcers in the jail, and I got on really well with him. And I wondered why we were getting so many people showing up to this to my courses, it was because he said so. So people would sit there and participate and do whatever I said, and I thought, geez, this is going well. But it was because he was sort of coaching them on how to behave and making sure they showed up. But to cut a long story short, one day I decided to interview him, so I brought my video camera in and I just videoed a conversation and asked him about his life. And I was kind of using these techniques and, really trying to understand from his perspective. And long story short, he's in there for murder, but when I heard of his journey from a boy going into these boys' homes, how they were treated in these boys' homes, and the experiences that he had in these boys' homes and whatever, it was just totally clear to me. I fully understood why he was a violent guy. I didn't agree with it, but I fully understood it. And I fully understood why he was in jail for murder. And I had complete trust in the guy. I just felt completely safe with him around when I was in jail with doing all of the teaching and all that sort of stuff, because there was plenty of times when it was just me and the inmates. There were no guards around and what have you. And they did say when they gave me this big speech that, we'll give you this thing you put on your belt, lift up the flap, press a button, and it's like a panic button. That was on day one. I never got one for the 2.5 years they forgot to give it to me. But it was just an experience I'll never forget, because it was like we were talking about really, really bad stuff that I disagree with vehemently, but I fully understood why he behaved that way. The great thing about this was we created such a fantastic relationship that he started going out into the public, so even though he was in jail, he was only a minimum security prisoner, so he was allowed out, and he would teach Aboriginal kids seminars and all of this sort of stuff, and won some national award for his efforts for keeping Aboriginal kids off drugs and all of this sort of stuff, and that was because of our conversations. Like he just wanted to learn and teach and learn and teach and learn and teach after that, and amazing things happened. But that his life wouldn't have gone in that direction, I don't think, if we hadn't have had this conversation. And we got close, and he was able to tell me things, and I was able to tell him things, and he was able to change his mindset and his approach and his behaviour, and lots and lots and lots of things changed. So it's a really valuable skill to learn, not for every area of life, not just talking to difficult clients. But they're a great laboratory, aren't they? Because there's plenty of them. So in this segment, the book review, I want to review this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Hopefully you've heard of it. In my view, it has absolutely everything that you will ever need to be successful in life and in business. And as I said in the intro, I honestly believe if you're only ever allowed to have one book, this would be it, because it covers everything from mindset to goal setting to time management to interpersonal skills, and it just has absolutely everything. And to help you to understand how powerful this book really is, a great friend of mine and mentor, Ian Seagale, and I and a couple of other guys would get together each week at 6 a.m. in a coffee shop, and it was kind of a book club, I guess, and somebody would suggest a book for the week. We'd get the book, we'd read it. The next week we would come back and we'd share the lessons that we'd gotten from that book and make notes and learn what other people had learned from that book. And we'd been doing it for about 5 or 6 months, doing a book a week. And it was my turn to suggest a book, and I suggested The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it was just so interesting, but it just goes to show you how powerful and how deep the information is in this book, that after 1 year of meeting every week, we hadn't got into the habits yet. we reviewed this book every week for 1 year, and we were just in the bit before you get to the habits, and understanding the whole philosophy of that. And it was just so much in it, and so much you can learn just in that beginning before we get to the habits. But then, of course, once you get to the habits, it is super, super powerful. Now, I must say, and in my case, when I first read this, it was really, really hard going, to the point where I went, I can't read this, because of, like, at that stage I was reading, had the 7 Habits in one hand and I had a thesaurus in the other, going, what the hell is Dr. Stephen Covey even talking about with some of the words he used? But the way that I got through that was I had a cassette. It was actually 8 cassettes, and I would listen to these 8 cassettes, and it was a live seminar of Stephen Covey reading and doing excerpts out of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I must have listened to that series of cassettes 100+ times. I basically wore them out, and after I'd listened to it over and over and over, I was able to get back and read the book. And you might be thinking, well, how many times have you read it? I think it's more than just a book that you read and go, that was great. I think it's a book that virtually turns into a reference library. You can go back and find a solution, an answer for pretty much any problem that you might have in your life, personally or professionally, in this book. This is how powerfully I feel about this book. So go out, grab yourself a copy of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and read it, and then start again and start again and start again. And just one other little tip with it, that you don't necessarily need to always read it from start to finish. As I said, if it's something about listening, for instance, you can just go to that particular habit, which would be habit 5. If it's goal setting, you could go to that particular habit. So it's a very, very powerful book. Get yourself a copy. And I'd love to hear any of the comments and questions that you might have when you start to read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Get a copy, enjoy it. You said if they've got time and space. Do you have any thoughts? Because again, when I say I hear people, the quote was, I see dead people, wasn't it? That was what I was trying to channel, but I got the words wrong.
Don't spoil the movie for me.
Okay. Having spoken to many, many builders, obviously, and even with some of our black belt members,
yep,
they know that they should do exactly what you just said.
Yep.
And I even had a conversation with one of them this morning, that their pipeline is pretty full at the moment with pretty high quality leads turning into customers.
Terrible problem to have.
It is a terrible problem to have. But it doesn't last forever unless you've got some form of process, measurable, manageable process at the front of your business, continuing that on. And so I said, please don't fall into that false sense of security that this will happen forever, because think about Blockbuster. Think about the Swiss watch manufacturers. Think about the vinyl record industry. These massive businesses that no longer exist. And I'm sure you love Simon Sinek too, but in his book, or one of the videos I was listening to a little while ago, he was just talking about the conversation that was had in the Blockbuster video boardroom when Netflix was a fledgling little company, and some guys came into the boardroom and said, guys, this streaming thing, it's going to be a thing. You know, we need to look at streaming, because people are just going to press a button and they'll be able to watch it at home. They won't have to go to the video store. And the wise board members of Blockbuster said, no, we won't even consider that, because 15% of our revenue comes from late fees. And that means if we go to streaming, there are no late fees. We're going to lose 15% of their revenue. Because they're trying to hold on to 15% of their revenue, they lost all of it. And there's one Blockbuster store left in the boondocks somewhere in Canada. And Blockbuster could have been Netflix with just that decision.
Well, they're making a decision around something that's not important. You know,
my point.
Keep money because we earn 15% of our profit. I'm like, why is that the primary decision-making criteria? It's a stupid thing to build a business around.
Yeah.
What, products, not late fees? Well, I mean, it goes for builders as well. And this is where you need to innovate. And this is the big shock that everybody got with COVID, is everyone thought that their business was fine. Everyone thought that people would get haircuts forever and business forever. And in my world, we'd be training in live rooms forever. And actually, we got a dirty, big, cold fish in the face, slap. No, overnight, all of that stops. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some builders and some sparkies and some plumbers, they got away with it because they're considered essential services. But I got a lot of friends in the hospitality industry who shut their doors.
Yep.
Right. And all they had, if they were lucky enough to have a window out the front, could start doing takeaway food. Yeah. But it's really interesting. And I remember ringing a friend who owns a pub and he lives down in Sorrento. So if you're from Melbourne, it's like down the coast. And I said, Benny, how you going, buddy? And he goes, you know what, mate, I'm about to start busking just to earn some cash. This is like 3 weeks in. I'm stuffed, I'm cooked. I've reduced my staff to a chef and me, and we're just trying to do some takeaway food at the moment. And I said, oh, dude, look, here's an idea. I've just got one. Go and find a business like a bank or something and see if you can get the bank to pay for coffees for all of their staff. And then you can do a run and you can sell $300 or $400 worth of coffee on a Friday. He's like, Joshy, that's a great idea. I'm going to go and hit up the bank managers to do that, right? So at least I've got $400 coming in. 3 weeks later, I go, Benny, how you going, buddy? He goes, business has never been better. Right? I've reduced my staff to just me and a chef, right? That's it. So my outgoing, and I'm not turning on the lights or the electricity. I've got nothing else going on. It's just me and him and everybody in town who loves the food. And his wife's a chef too, and she puts together the menu. People are like queuing up to get takeaway, right? They really want to support our business. I got the bank manager on board. And you know what, Josh? This is really, really cool. Last summer, because they're about 200 Ks away from Melbourne, I had to beg to get a chef down here for 120K, right? For a job that he'd get 80K in the city. And I can say this as an employer, not an employee. And I know that your guys are employers, so that's fine. Next summer, I'll have 10 of them lining up at the door to work for 60K. Right? So I'm taking a bit of a hit now, but I know what's going to happen in the future. So if I can just keep my doors open for a few months, when all of these smaller businesses are gone, with a dip comes a rise, with a rise comes a dip. You've got to be ready for these moments. So he's just positioned himself, hospitality, getting screwed. He's positioned himself to make a lot of money on the other end of it. And this is what smart people are doing. They're looking at this as an opportunity. And they're positioning themselves so when that opportunity comes along, they are straight out of the gates. Because you don't want to be left on the starting blocks when everybody else is at the 50-meter line because you went into panic. So few little smart decisions along the way and just going, how is this a good thing? How is this a good thing? And using this as a chance to innovate rather than having a big bitch fest about it. Because, bitching and moaning and complaining is fun for about 20 seconds and then it becomes, who cares? Just get over and done, move on with it. So my question for your blokes would be like, well, what's the smart thing that's going to happen? And like, what happens one day when people don't want to build a house? Because it'll happen. And you can tell yourself, well, people are always going to need to build a house, but you're like, yeah, but it's already happening. People are building houses in factories and craning them in.
Yep.
And actually all you need now is a sparky and a plumber.
Yep.
Right? And I know it's a different quality service and I know it's a different thing, but frankly, I'm just Joe Bloggs down the street and I don't give a shit. I just want a house.
Yeah. Right?
I understand the workmanship that goes into building. But if I can get that for 50K cheaper and it's done overnight, beautiful. And it's also, it comes in on a Thursday rather than raining out and washing out in bad weather. Well, that's a more predictable process. So you need to be prepared for these innovations.
Yeah.
And this is a good taste of what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years' time. So you want to get ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, funny you should say that. One of the introductions to a future podcast, because it hasn't happened yet, so we haven't filmed it yet. Yeah. We've got the block next door, but on the other side of that, a lady's bought a house and it's already been built. It's coming on a truck with a big crane in the next week or so. So we're going to do a bit of filming in front of this house that's being lifted onto its foundations and have a bit of fun. But mate, this has been sensational as always. I so appreciate your friendship and your support and your generosity with your knowledge and your smarts and all that sort of stuff. Plus, it's just a ton of fun always talking to you. We have a good time. We have a good laugh. I so appreciate you coming on the show, and I certainly hope we can get you back on again at some stage in the future.
Mick, I love hanging out with smart dudes. I'm only smart because I hang out with smart dudes. So thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it.
So before we get out of here, because, I I watch all of your videos on Facebook and what have you, where it doesn't have to be building related, guys. It just has to be intelligent, smart, leading edge thoughts about stuff, and it inspires you. So go watch Josh Mckiterick. Where do we go to watch Josh Mckiterick?
Well, you go to Facebook and you type Josh Mckiterick and you just check out some stuff, and I'm just having a rant.
He is. There was one yesterday, like I got quite scared watching it.
It's true. But, you know, some things piss me off, some things I love. I want to help people. I want to call out bullshit.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything that I do is to help people be a smarter version of themselves, right? Everything that I want to do is help people, you know, get through their bullshit straight away. It's fun having a bit of a bitch, but get over it and go and create the thing that you want to create. And the faster I can help you do that, the better. And sometimes, you know, sometimes I need to be lovely and sometimes I need to just yell at you. So whatever works.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, thank you again. You're an absolute champion. That was Josh Mckiterick. Okay, that's the show. We've heard from Josh Mckiterick. We've talked about the 7 habits of highly effective people. In What Did I Say, I was talking about listening to people and understanding people. So that brings me to the conclusion that the actionable takeaway in this show is habit 5 out of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit 5 is first seek to understand, then to be understood. And it's such a powerful habit. If you've ever experienced not being listened to, if you've felt that, you know, you've got some real challenging problems going on in your mind, and somebody with the best intentions is trying to help you out, yet you don't feel listened to, you don't feel like that somebody has paid attention to what you've said. And the reasons for that are in this particular habit. And I think that you can go get the book, go straight to habit 5, start to learn these skills. I would suggest to you that learning the skills in habit 5 would be the single most important skill that you could learn for your business. It will benefit your business in every single area, with your prospects, with your customers, with your team, with your suppliers, with your subcontractors. This habit will help you in every one of those areas, and you'll be able to help a lot of other people with this particular skill. So that was my takeaway. Go grab yourself a copy of the 7 habits and absolutely go berserk with habit 5. So with every episode, our purpose is to answer questions and offer solutions. What we also find is some of the stuff that we put out there creates more questions than it answers. And if you've got questions or there's something that you've learned in this episode and you'd like a hand to figure out how to implement it into your business, all you need to do is reach out. You can book a call, schedule a call with me, and we can jump on the phone and figure out what your roadblock is and get you moving and point you in the right direction. So if you're watching it on our webpage, there's a button directly underneath the video. Just hit that. That'll take you to a small form. Fill it out. We'll be on a call before you know it. If you're listening to it on Spotify or iTunes or in another audio fashion, all you need to do is navigate to buildersbusinessblackbelt.com.au. Go to the website there. There'll be a big orange button that says schedule a call. Hit that. Go to the form. We'll be talking before you know it. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of Builders Business Success Podcast, and I'll be looking forward to speaking with you again in the next episode. I'm Mick Hawes, Builders Business Black Belt. Bye for now.
Okay, that's the podcast. If you have a question or want to know how Mick can help with your building business, email your request to mick@buildersbusinessblackbelt.com.au. Do it. Do it now.